Poštovani gledalci, u ime Memoriјalnog centra Republike Srpske danas imamo čast da pozdravimo našeg uvaženog gosta, jednog od najpoznatijih konzervativnih lidera u Americi, bivšeg kongresmena i uglednog govornika, gospodina Boba Mekјuena. Gospodin Mekјuen bio je dugogodišnji član Američkog kongresa, savjetnik brojnih državnika i danas je prepoznat kao glas tradicionalnih vrijednosti, patriotizma i slobode. Razgovarat ćemo o aktualnim političkim dešavanjima u Americi, o predsjedniku Donaldu Trumpu koji se vratio u Bijelu kuću, o pritiscima na Republiku Srpsku i pravosudnim procesima protiv predsjednika Milorada Dodika, o tragičnoj smrti Charlie Kirka i konzervativnom pokretu koji je ostavio iza sebe, kao i značaju kulture sjećanja. Nedavno je u Vašiнгtonu prikazan film Svjedok koji svjedoči o stradanju srpskog naroda, a sa gospodinom Mekјuenom razgovarat ćemo o zajedničkim vrijednostima, o slobodi, o sjećanju i o političkim izazovima. Mr. Mekјuen, thank you for your time. How do you assess the current political situation in America now that President Donald Trump has returned to the White House?
Well, there's a saying that leadership makes a difference. And Europe in particular, and the United States for the last 4 years has been leaderless. And we're glad to have Donald Trump back. The entire world recognizes the benefits of that, and the world is becoming a much better place every day.
President Trump has been facing trials, from the hush money case to the charges related to January 6th and the case with classified documents. Do you see these legitimate cases, or it's a political motivated process? What do you think
There's
about that?
always something. When you're in politics, there's two ways to attack. You either attack politically, the policies, but if the policies are very popular, then you have to do, as we all know, the things with Bill Clinton and John Kennedy, and they talk about the other side. So it's just part of it, but nobody pays any attention.
You can say it's a typical situation.
It's a typical situation.
And how do you believe President Trump's second term will affect America's future role?
Well, what happened was we are in a real transition period. As you know, the United States created the global positioning system, so people use the GPS to find directions, ships on the high seas or airplanes, and that had a real impact. Then the United States invented the internet, so people could sell and buy and sell all over the world. But now we're moving into artificial intelligence, and that requires a lot of energy. And under the Democrats, the previous party, they weren't prepared to do that. And China was moving rapidly forward. But now that Donald Trump is back in control, there's an explosion in energy production. We're surpassing, and nations are coming together. And it's really an exciting time to be alive.
So, do you think America under President Trump will return to the conservative values, or divisions in society are already so deep? How we can talk about that subject?
Europe began first to abandon God. Freedom is a three-legged stool. There's economic freedom, there's political liberty, and there's spiritual truth. And so in order to control it economically, you have to take over the government. That's political. And in order to do that, you have to make government supreme and do away with God. So we saw that that's what Stalin and Lenin did. We saw what Hitler did. And we see an abandonment of spiritual values in Europe. The United States has been drifting in that direction. However, in the United States, we see an explosion of a revival of spiritual values. And that spiritual truth leads to political liberty. And then we see the economics as the economy and people are coming back greater than ever before.
I know that you're familiar with everything was happening in Europe, in East Europe, in Balkan, especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so we can talk a little about that. Republike Srpske has been facing increasing pressure from international institutions, foreign embassy, from Sarajevo. How do you see these pressures? Can you explain that
well,
from your point of view, of course?
There's always a question as to whether or not you have a spiritual value system. And man without God, Dennis, man without God always ends up killing. So the further we get our eyes off of God, then the more we start killing each other. And that's what we see in the Middle East. We see the bombings and Serbia has always been very strong in its commitment to faith. And that's a battle because of truth. That's the battle that the United States faces. That's what Serbia faces, and that's what Srpska faces. And I'm excited about the Srpska revival. But you see those folks up in Brussels, They are of the old school. And I think that Donald Trump and then the United States is leading a restoration that's going to be great for Serbia and for Srpska.
But Republike Srpske now have lots of challenge. President Dodik has been sentenced by the court of Sarajevo because he is not recognizing the decision of the High Representative. Do you believe this represents a violation? Is this a representative violation of the Dayton Agreement?
Well, Mr. Dodik is a leader, and socialist groups don't like leaders, and so they've tried to isolate him. And I think we're going to see, and I appreciate and admire the sacrifice that he's made, but I think that we're going to, in the years ahead, very soon, over these next couple of years, begin to restore that. The High Commissioner has been unchecked. He's been operating out of bounds, and it's high time that that be reconstructed as was originally ordained in the Dayton Accords. And my heart goes out to the sacrifice that Mr. Dodik has made.
And Republike Srpske, of course.
And thereby the Republike of Srpske, that's for sure.
Of course, Republike Srpske and United States cannot be compared in terms of views, influence, or global power. But will you agree that political pressure, regardless of the size of country, always aim the same goal?
Dennis, you're exactly right. It's the same. It's between right and wrong. It's between light and dark. And you see the people on the left. You'll see Soros, and Soros putting in millions and millions of dollars in order to defeat Donald Trump. And we see what Soros does in the Republike of Srpske and wherever they go. That is, those that want to control individually versus the people. And those who believe in a republic, as the Republike of Srpske, they want to protect the people, not just the oligarchs like Mr. Soros and others.
Can we say that these kind of pressures are always example for another nation to see what would happen with them if they don't listen?
Yes, and we have seen the consequences of what they've done. And I could name a couple, but I'll let it go. But you can see where he has just done damage. And that's the fight. Freedom, Dennis, freedom is never free. You can't just go sit on a bench or go to bed. The tyrant and the thief, if you don't lock your door, if you don't stand up, the thief will come and steal what you have. And when the people of Srpska have freedom, then we see the effort to constantly we have to be vigilant. That's what George Washington said. The cost of liberty is constant vigilance. That is, we have to be alert at all times.
So when you say freedom is not free, that's happening from the beginning of the time.
We always have to pay, every generation.
How dangerous is when courts and international mechanisms are turned into political weapons against leaders who they have support?
There are two ways to take control. One is to, as Mr. Soros does, to try to buy the leadership. And if that doesn't work, then you get the international organizations to do it. And if the international organizations are not successful, then you go to war. And so what these international organizations are trying to do is steal liberty. And that's why Donald Trump has withdrawn from them. That's why he has not paid a single penny to the United Nations since he became president. Because as long as those people don't stand for what's right, then there's no responsibility for Americans to pay for it. And so we're at a critical time that the world has needed quite badly. They've needed leadership. And I think the United States is beginning to provide leadership, and it's long overdue.
Would you say that the struggle of Republike Srpske for constitutional rights has similarities with the struggle of President Trump in America? Can we compare that kind? I know we said this.
No, I
it's
think
impossible to compare size of the countries, but
the size is the only difference. The cause is the same. The enemy is the same. The cause of freedom is the same. And the Republike of Srpske is a beacon of hope for the Balkans.
How do you see the Republike of Srpske in the future years?
Well, the Republike of Srpske is dependent upon a United States that is strong and is willing to pay attention. And I see that coming. We have a new Secretary of State, and the High Commissioner being able to operate outside the bounds of his constraint has created problems for freedom, for liberty, and for Srpska. And it's high time that we see those things changing, and I'm optimistic that they will be.
And how one more question in the same subject. In your opinion, how can Republike Srpske find allies within the American conservative movements who could understand what's really happening?
Dennis, I understand that question, and I understand the difficulty of it. The United States is 4% of the population of the world, 4%. And yet if there's trouble in the South China Sea, the other 96% said, why doesn't the United States do something? If there's trouble in the Middle East with those billions of dollars of those wealthy countries, they say, why doesn't the United States do something? If there's an incursion between Ukraine and Russia, they run to the 4%. In my congressional district, if these people are not rich, they're farmers and they're shop owners and say, why don't you pay to fix this situation in Ukraine? So the constant wearing upon the American taxpayer is such that it's sometimes difficult for them to focus on exactly what's happening in Southeast Asia or in the Balkans. And that's responsibility of responsible leaders like myself to bring to their attention the significance of what is at stake in Srpska and in the Balkan region. So we'll do our best, but I ask for a little bit of appreciation for the American taxpayer, because wherever you go in any of the 200 countries of the United Nations, their first question is, what are the American taxpayer going to do for me? And this is now the third generation after World War II. We sacrificed in World War II. Then my generation, all of our parents fought in the World War II, and we understood it. But now our children, the third generation, they're beginning to ask, why us all the time? And so certainly with a little country like Srpska, without the United States agreement, they would be in real trouble. But I will say to the Germans and to the Brits and to the Argentinians, it's time that you get up and stand up a little bit and don't always leave Srpska to send for itself, and the United States is its only ally.
You just arrived from Arizona. I have a few questions here, but I will just say Charlie Kirk. It was your friend.
He was. He was a young man who stood for right. He understood, and let me just tell you about Turning Point. It started out on college campuses as an economic question, and that was that socialism sucks. That is, socialism doesn't work. Very simply, Dennis, if you take the percentage of the economy that's controlled by government, you don't need to tell me the name of the country. Just show me what percentage of the economy is controlled by government, and here's the principle. The greater the government, the greater the poverty, the greater the freedom, the greater the wealth. It works that way every time, and that's all politics is. When Margaret Thatcher took over, Britain was on its knees. By the time she left, it was the fourth largest economy in the world. And so Turning Point was to say to these young people that economic freedom is important. Don't go with socialism. But then they say, how do you get socialism? You get socialism by electing the wrong people who politically don't understand. They want to take. Remember, a politician can never give you anything. It doesn't first steal from someone else. Now, if a criminal does that, we say that's bad. If a politician does it, then we call him a progressive. And so as they saw the economic freedom, then they began to ask questions about political liberty. As they asked questions about political liberty, the next step was, well, who says what is right? Who decides what is wrong? And that's a spiritual question as we to spiritual truth. And so what we see is a revival spiritually taking place on college campuses. And Charlie, he's just been, he was just buried yesterday, and the first conference that he missed was in Minnesota last night. And the building was absolutely packed out. There were people, overflows, thousands that couldn't get in. And the spokesman for him said, what is Charlie's message to us? He said to go to church, get married, read the Bible every day. And as he's trying to say those things, these college students in America were erupting in cheers and clapping. So he has had an impact that's actually sweeping the world. And that's what our founders, that's why America is different, is that you can't tell, you don't know if a person is an American, because an American is spiritual, it's not physical. You and I can't become Japanese, we can't become Chinese, but anybody can become an American because American is spiritual. And that's what he has been sharing, and he was taken much too young, but it hurts, but others are picking up the torch, and I'm excited about the future.
You told me before this interview that you received numbers of messages all around the world about Charlie.
Yes.
So What can we say about that?
I don't think we've ever seen anyone. He just turned 30, as you know, 31. He is being honored for what he did as a 20-something, in his 20s. And the entire world, prime ministers, you saw around the world, as well as members of parliament and people in Europe, said as they saw the presentation of Jesus Christ, we saw the vice president, we saw the secretary of state, we saw the attorney general, we saw the secretary of defense, all saying that it's a spiritual question and we're going to stand with him spiritually. And that's the revolution that's taking place around the world because of Charlie's faithfulness to righteousness. Well, there's no better example than Banja Luka, beautiful Banja Luka, where people that have never met Charlie, but they understood what he stood for. And they had a beautiful ceremony there honoring what? Not him physically, honoring him for what he stood for, that principle. That's the sense of freedom and godly values that will keep us free. And Srpska is a light to the Balkans when it comes to that.
Can you tell us a little more about him personally? Because I'm sure that lots of people, not only in the Republike Srpske, in the whole Balkan region, want to know more.
Yes. Well, very simply, he was just a young man that wanted to do what Christ called us to do. And so he was asked just a few weeks ago, he said, how do you want to be remembered? Now, you usually don't ask a 30-year-old, how do you want to be remembered? But he said, I want to be remembered as having courage for my faith. And he also mentioned that every quality that we have is downstream from courage. Without courage, you don't have any other character qualities. So we need courage, and then courage for what? To stand for righteousness as Christ told us in the scriptures. And because of a young man willing to say that, you saw that young people on college campuses that are told just the opposite from all those things. And what we've been through COVID, Dennis, this is a generation of young people in America that saw that people lied to them. They told them that if you took this shot, that you would never get COVID. And they found that's not true. And they told them that they had to stand 6 feet away because they just made it up. All of these things, they're losing faith in our leaders because the leaders were not true to principle. And when Charlie came along and said, we need to go back to the Word of God, they said, that's what I'm looking for. And that's why we have a spiritual revival going on.
What was really interesting for me personally when I saw the YouTube videos, I saw him sitting alone, answering the question, and in front of him was 1,000 people. He wasn't scared.
Let me explain. Yeah. He borrowed something that I shared with him many times, and that is that truth overcomes error. Let me give you an example. Yeah. I can say this space is 25 feet wide. Someone else can say it's 30. Somebody say it's 40. Somebody say it's 12. And we can talk about it. We can have white paper. We have discussions. We have conventions. We just go on and on. That's a college. You just go on until someone comes and measures it. Now, when they measure it, that's truth. And everybody, the person said it was 30, the person said it was, everybody turns on truth because people hate truth because truth reveals error. And so what Charlie would do, he would just sit there and say, all right, tell me why socialism is good. Tell me why and they can't do it. And when they can't, then you have to call them names. So then you would say, you're a Nazi and you're a racist and you could see it because he would present the truth, and that's what they hate. And other people have figured it out, and it's going to be a good thing for truth.
You have a chance to saw our movie, Witness about Serbian suffering. What can you tell about that, your emotion, your impressions?
Well, it gets back to what I said. The idea of man without God will fight and kill. And it's the spirit that God put. That's why America is a refugees from all over the world, because we hold this truth to be self-evident that all men are created. That means that they're God-given and they're given rights. And the first one is life, then liberty. See, liberty isn't much value if you're dead. So you have to have life first. And this is the only nation that did that. And so you see that when people want to take power, what do they do? In your documentary is so wrenching. I hate to use the word good, but it's necessary because it shows what man is capable of doing when he wants to have power for himself.
But not only for one nation, necessary for
every nation. It's the same. It's the same principle. It's the same principle. then that's why we need a spiritual revival in America, and I think we see the spiritual revival taking place across the world.
So, do you think the Serbian people should continue to invest in preserving and sharing their testimonies on an international level? I think we did not recognize in that way, but I think we have a good future if we continue, like, for example, like showing the witness in the Washington.
It's important for people to understand. I have as a politician, I look at the world and I've said that the single worst thing that ever happened to the world since Adam and Eve in the garden was World War I. And all of this is downstream from the chaos of after World War I, particularly in the Balkans. And in order for it to be corrected, people have to know what happens when people don't stand for what's right or wrong. And the Serbs and Srpske in particular, examples of where every American pilot knew that I didn't understand when you got shot down, the plane doesn't crash. What happens is you get holes in the oil or in the hydraulics or in the gas, and so you can fly for 100 miles or 200 miles. You're going to crash sometime, but if you could make it to Srpske, if you made it to those towns and land, that they would protect the American soldier because we had a bond of standing for freedom. So the love between us is so strong that the world needs to know the difference, and just as we have to take vigilance, that's why people should know the sacrifice that the Serbians have made in that region and what the history has been. And certainly your documentary is, the whole world should see it.
One more question for the end. Where do you see the world for 10 years?
Jens, you ask me the future, and politicians always say this is the best time and all that. And you know they don't believe it. But I'm going to tell you, I'm 75 years old. I got involved in politics. I was elected to office when I was 24. I've been around a long time. I can look over this half a century that I've been involved and see the directions because I loved history. I will tell you that I have never been as optimistic as I am now. There was the Cold War was a constant fight between the communism and the free world. Over this last few years, some have lost their way. China says, I'm going to control the high seas. I'm going to control telecommunications. And we know what would happen if a totalitarian did that. There is a rising, I believe, in the world towards freedom and towards free enterprise that we've never seen before. And I am truly more optimistic that the next couple of decades are going to be the best in our country's history. As we stand firmly with Srpske, it's going to be the best in their history. I believe we're entering, as Donald Trump said, a golden age. 100 years from now, we're going to look back to these next 20 years. This is going to be an exciting, wonderful, free time.
Mr. Mekјuenon, thank you for your conversation, your time.
It's an honor for me to be invited. I'm honored to be with you. I repeat, what you did in presenting to the world what happened to the people in the Balkans in your documentary, everyone should see it. Therefore, I'm in your debt, and I respect you for it and thank you for the chance to be with you.
Thank you again. U vremenu kada Republika Srpska prolazi kroz velike izazove, važno je čuti glas prijatelja koji razumiju šta znači boriti se za slobodu, pravdu i očuvanje sopstvenog identiteta. Dragi gledalci, razgovarali smo sa Bobom Mekјuenom, američkim kongresmenom i konzervativnim liderom, a vjerujemo da će glasovi naših prijatelja poput gospodina Mekјuena doprinijeti da se čuje istina i da naš narod ima podršku u svijetu. Nadamo se da će ovaj intervju pomoći u jačanju veza između našeg naroda i prijatelja u Americi i doprinijeti boljem razumijevanju naših zajedničkih vrijednosti.